Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Five
Hey.
Stack. Nice to see you. That is Zev. I'm Dean. Narrative.org is where you can find all of Zev's work, which is incredible. He likes to connect dots. He likes to make sense out of things that nobody seems to understand how they make sense, like crypto, like where the PayPal mafia came from. This whole Starlink thing that's now involved with Palantir and AOC and a couple of other congressmen and senators saying, hey, Palantir, why are you stealing American information? We've got that to get to today. Anyway, go and subscribe to Zev's. Of course, he's got 35% off for the month of June. Same with me, deanblundell.substack.com, where you can read my latest, The Dumber You Are, The More You Love Trump.
Oh my God, that is a great story.
It's a story about science.
You know what? Let's actually touch on that. It's not in the countdown, but why don't you just give us a little, if you don't mind, just giving us an extra story today. I'd like to hear about that story.
I'm a big fan of research. I know it looks like I wing it here, but I do a significant amount of reading before I wing it here.
Thank God.
and one of my friends, who's like one of Canada's gold standard research guys, his name is Frank Graves, owns a company called Ecos Research. You may have heard of it.
Yeah, of course.
Put out like a mind-numbing study today in some of his trends for the month of June that effectively suggests that the approval of Donald Trump among the most disinformed is literally 70 times higher than people who are informed. Effectively saying, if you're stupid, you're a Trump fan. And if you live in Canada and you're a Trump fan, you're even more stupid.
Right.
It was a fascinating study, and we break it down, Trump's approval rating among the most informed, most misinformed Canadians. This is fucking great. 72%. Informed Canadians, 1%.
Wow.
Like legitimate, we're talking about the difference between education and not being educated. People that have the ability to reason, people who don't have the ability to reason. So highly encourage you to go and take that in. You'll feel a lot smarter if you hate Trump. I guarantee
Turns out going
you
to
that.
school was a good thing.
Yeah, and send this article to your Trumper family and friends too. Like gift them a subscription to my Substack with this article. DeanBlundell.substack.com. If you love taking the low road sometimes and a little schadenfreude, sending the article that I just put out, quote, the dumber you are, the more you love Trump, disinformation, gullibility, and the MAGA mindset. Please go ahead and gift that to your
and that is just the tip of the iceberg.
Trumper family member.
So much good stuff on DeanBlundellSubstack.com.
Thanks, buddy.
Honestly, it's my go-to place every morning. I have to check it out to know what's going on in the world. You have such a good take, and there's some good stories we're coming to later in the countdown when we hit the closer to number one.
PJ Schuster, by the way, just in the chat, he's in here quite a bit. Love you, PJ. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Victoria. He's like, I despise the man, so I must be a goddamn genius. Yes, you are.
It does make you feel like a genius just because you just like the guy. I agree with you. The number 5 story in the countdown today, Europe just fired a 1.35 billion shot across Elon Musk's bow, with France leading a massive funding round for satellite company Eutelsat, specifically to counter Starlink's dominance. The French government will become the largest shareholder with a 30% stake, positioning Eutelsat as Europe's sovereign alternative to Musk's space internet monopoly. This is actually a huge story, even though it might sound like just another one of those business stories. It's all about who gets to control the hearts and minds and information that flows into every European's mind and really the minds of everyone in the world. We've come to learn that Starlink is perhaps not completely a impartial player in this world game. And the French and the Europeans have realized they need a real alternative. So here comes Eutelsat. It's going to take them a while to catch up, but finally there'll be a real well-funded counter to Starlink, which seems to be doing all sorts of stuff from siphoning the American data to potentially, maybe interfering in the American elections.
Way to throw that little nugget in there too. That's a good one. Do you remember last week we talked about it because I put out a story that said Canada is reconsidering allowing Starlink to operate within government confines, meaning using Starlink depending on where you are in Canada. If you're a government entity, they would ban it if you're a government entity, whether it's federal, provincial, or municipal. Remember that?
Yeah.
These are not the only conversations that are happening around the world about Elon Musk's Starlink. And this Eutelsat deal, $1 billion, 10 years, French government, to provide military satellite coverage, effectively removes a previous agreement that the French government had to use Starlink for the same purposes. Canada is not far behind. Now, there are several other countries who are not just actively talking about it, they're actively funding different options. In Canada, it's called Telsat. In Europe or French, it's called EU Telsat. It's not Eutelsat, it's EU
Oh,
Telsat.
sorry.
It's what it's called. No, it's okay. It just looks like Eutelsat. And so they're actively funding, and it's kind of one of those really quiet wars that's been going on that's really upsetting Elon Musk, and it's really upsetting Russia, and it's really upsetting the executives over at Starlink because they've been given a ton of money to go into other countries and sell them on Starlink, which is a rural internet IP access service. But
Oh, so
it
they
is so
claim.
captured and owned by Elon Musk, and in the questions are so much louder about the security of Elon Musk's Starlink when it comes to government secrets, according to what he's done, what he's parroted, some of the rhetoric that he's been involved in, how would the hard right ideologies he supported, how fucking out of pocket he was. I imagine the Nazi salutes probably had something to do with this as well. But this is purely about sovereignty. This is about
Mm.
national security, and there isn't a fucking world leader that is not a dictator or an autocrat in this world who at this moment trusts Elon Musk's with any state secrets whatsoever. So good for France. The announcement's incredible. Expect one to come out of Canada in the next 2 to 3 months as well, where they are going to ban, and I mean ban Starlink for every user in this country,
Mm.
not just for government offices, and they're going to embrace Canadian technology with an EU slant to it.
Oh, that's so important that all the freedom-loving countries of the world, and the United States is not one of them anymore, needs to embrace any new technology that is counter to what Starlink has been doing. I just posted on narrative.org a new investigation which looks at this new suspect that has emerged in the hacking of democracy. There is this power supply unit, this uninterrupted power supply unit that's connected to a vast number of voting machines around America that actually, they keep telling us these voting machines are air gapped. There's no ways they communicate with each other. Not actually true. The uninterrupted power supplies are actually networked together. And I go into what that means. It's a significant story about how it is very possible, at least the capability exists to do all sorts of interference in those electronic voting machines as the system operates right now. Now, add to that, there's of course a Palantir agreement with this company that owns all these uninterrupted power supplies, Eaton Corporation, and you've got an interesting connection there between Palantir and then Eaton, and then Palantir and Eaton sign an agreement with Starlink to investigate what it would be like to connect all these EVMs to Starlink. Some of this has been reported out before, but not as detailed about the Eaton UPS, which I've been reporting on. It's a very technical story, and I don't blame everyone for glazing over every time I talk about it, but it is an important thing because it does seem to me that even if we don't look back in 2024, which we really should look back at 2024 and see what the vulnerabilities were, going forward, there is no guarantee that any U.S. election is free and fair until they've sorted out these. I mean, I'm talking about dozens of vulnerabilities, not just one or two, that really jeopardize future elections in America and probably elsewhere in the world. Because these devices, these uninterrupted power supplies, guess what? 160 countries around the world. So add to that the Starlink capability that they got because of the emergency hurricane relief that they got. Boy, this is a story that people need to pay attention to because someone is going to have to investigate. I don't know whom at this point, but the safety of our elections.
Yeah, no longer safe. I don't. I don't think. Listen, Canada does paper ballots, and we're not
Yeah.
moving away from paper
Oh,
ballots
best
anytime
system.
soon. Yeah, yeah,
Best
yeah.
system.
Yeah, you give us a ballot, we can cross-reference it, we can check it, we can look at other ones like it, we can throw it out, we can use it. Technology is incredible only in as much as technology doesn't get bastardized or weaponized, and it's traditionally almost the first thing that happens when technology becomes readily available. Twitter was supposed to be the town square. It's not. It's a massive algorithm that makes you angry and forces people into an alternative reality. Same with Facebook. What is Facebook? Oh, it's supposed to be able to look at your family's pictures. You're supposed to be able to look at vacation shots from 2016 before you gained 50 pounds. And you're supposed to go back there and, you're supposed to, that's how you keep in touch. No, 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 no. Propaganda. It's been used to make people angry, incite riots, violence, ritual killing, stuff like that. We don't live in a time where the technology that exists doesn't belong to the people that created it, and it doesn't also belong to the people that decided that how they were going to use it to enrich themselves and make the world a fucking worse place. One of the things that I miss about 30 years ago were those guys we used to mock and make fun of. They had no way of knowing where each other were. They couldn't find community,
Hmm.
right? So 30, 40 years ago, guys like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel were considered what we would commonly know to be known as today as losers. They were nerds, they were
Hmm.
dorks, they were idiots, they were morons, they were people from your neighborhood who didn't have any friends, that came from privileged upbringings, who had no social skills, who just used to hide in the fucking basement, and they'd show up to a couple of family functions a year. But generally speaking, they knew their lot in life was to be a loser and to continue losing in their parents' basement. Well, fast forward 30, 40 years, these losers found each other online. And, and they decided to develop crypto, and they decided to develop coding and to come up with programs that nobody else could, because that's all they did when they were losers. They just sat losing, trying to figure out a way that they could
You're being a bit
create an
harsh.
alternative reality.
Being a
No,
bit
hold on.
harsh
Let
on
me
these
finish.
guys. Okay, keep going. I'm
Let
a
me finish.
nerd.
Let me
I
finish.
like being a nerd.
I'm a nerd too. I'm like a research nerd. I'm a guy that
Yeah,
likes to read things and kind of
good.
understand side doors and hacks and all those things. But I'm talking about the ones that like are terrible people as well. I'm not
Yes.
talking
Yes. The
about
ones that are
cool
plotting the
nerds.
complete
Yeah.
control of the universe,
Yeah.
stroking white
So
cats in the basement. Like,
yeah. Yeah,
$1 billion.
exactly. Yeah,
Those guys.
like a couple 100,000 Dr. Evils are like, you're a loser, I'm a
Yeah.
loser. You're smart, I'm smart. Let's come up with crypto. And that's
Yeah.
what they
Let's
did.
take over the
And
world.
take over the world. And then they do the same thing with like, let's come up with a surveillance machine because we can, because we've got crypto and because we're really smart. And we came up with these programs that made us super rich at the age of 28, even though we had male pattern baldness and, family trauma and all these things. That's what's running America right now. I just
Mhm.
want everybody to enjoy it. And the world's dumbest con man has recognized, how do I figure out a way to go and capture those guys, because we live in a digital world where that's the most important thing. Give him a little bit of credit, like just
Yeah.
a little bit. 7, 8 years ago, crypto was dumb. He didn't understand it. He's going to outlaw it. Today, crypto is the greatest thing in the world because he made $53 billion trying to getting into office because of it. So, and he's not doing that if it weren't for the help of these nerds who found each other online 30 years ago and decided to take over the world, Seth. You
So
and I both know that.
Revenge of the Nerds is actually a very prophetic,
It's not a
prescient
great
plot
thing.
line.
Yeah.
They actually did it. A couple of that's really well put. Although I wouldn't agree with all of that about these
Well, you
particular
should,
gimmicks.
because it's true. Listen, I'm a little rough around the edges, but if you want to know what's going on, all those nerds found this fucking moron named Curtis Yarvin, and
Yeah.
they started reading
Oh
Curtis
gosh.
Yarvin stuff, and they're like, we could be kings too because we're so much smarter, and we could just set up the algorithms and the rules to be able to benefit us and fuck everybody else. And
Did you
they're
have a
like,
clubhouse growing up?
sold.
Did you and your friends have a clubhouse? We had a little clubhouse back in
Yeah,
Johannesburg. Yeah, we used to hang out and do little missions around the neighborhood.
we
That's what
always
these
did. Yeah.
guys. Yeah. So by the way, let me just return us 1 second here to the story that I was talking about. So Leonard Leo, talk about another nerd
Yeah.
in the clubhouse. Leonard Leo would be a
Massive
good
religious
addition.
nerd. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So it turns out that this guy actually, facilitated the purchase of the uninterrupted power supply company, Triplite, that was purchased by Eaton, the company that is now involved with Palantir and Starlink in this weird EVM conspiracy. Well, it turns out that he actually bought the company on behalf of this future transaction because he was trying to avoid a $400 million tax bill that landed up going because it was going to a foundation, his Marble Fund, it avoided a tax bill. I'm just
Strange, isn't it?
It is so strange that Leonard Leo would also be involved in the story, involved with Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and
All
this
these
Ethan
nerds. I'm
all
telling you,
the same.
dude, the fucking nerd revolution is here.
It is completely that. Anyhow, number 4 on the countdown. Vice President J.D. Vance. You've heard of him? He arrived in Los Angeles Fridays for a surprise visit to tour federal operation centers and meet with Marines deployed to the city amid ongoing immigration raids. This comes as Trump has federalized California's National Guard against Governor Newsom's objections creating a constitutional crisis. And of course, we know the Ninth Circuit came down in favor of Donald Trump. That will now be appealed to the Supreme Court. There's a lot going on there. But, why isn't Trump going? Why isn't Trump there? Shouldn't he be going saying hello to the troops in California? Why is J.D. Vance getting a secondment?
He's had a tough couple weeks, dude.
Yeah.
He's really tired. He's really decrepit. He's having a hard time. I don't know if you watched the flag lifting ceremony yesterday at the White House.
Oi.
he
It's his gift. It's his gift to America. He wanted to give us a gift of two giant poles because we're compensating for something. I don't know.
88-foot poles because he's got a tiny mushroom hammer.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is the king of overcompensation, right?
Yeah.
Yesterday he did the flag lifting thing, and I couldn't stop laughing because he's like, what we got here? It's what they call. It's always his deference is what they call. He's like, he puts it on someone else. It's what they call a lifting.
Yeah.
And he goes, because I don't want to say the other word. You might know it. Starts with an E. And I'm like, erection? He's like, because people will say something and then everybody's going to get on me and so I'm not going to say that word. It's a lifting. Then he turns around and he looks at all these guys. He goes, hey, none of you guys are illegal immigrants, are you?
These are guys doing the work for the White House.
And there's this guy who looks like he might be from another country standing behind him off to the right. And he's like, oh my God. He's like, he puts his head down. He's like, oh my God. He didn't just do that, did he? And he's like, yeah. And the guy's like, no, none of us are illegals. That's why we're here at the White House. We got vetted. And,
we don't hire illegal immigrants to do work at the White House. No, not yet. Not yet. Who knows? Maybe the future incarnation. Right now, no.
Oh my God. Anyway, so I'm watching this whole thing happen. And I put out a post yesterday, which has a picture of this patch on the back of his head. I don't know if we talked about it in the podcast yesterday. We did it briefly.
We'll talk about it again, so that's good.
He is so unwell. He's sick. He's mentally unwell. He's got unbelievable dementia. He cannot be trusted. White House aides are fucking freaking out, apparently. That is why he's not in Los Angeles. And I'm just going to go back to the J.D. Vance story.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
That's why he's not in Los Angeles, because he's so out of it. He is so physically and mentally damaged at this point that, every story and every rumor you heard about Joe Biden pales in comparison to where Donald Trump is physically and mentally. Yeah. And so now they're going to start sending out. It was a great conversation I had with someone kind of, that understands what's going on. And they're like, now they're going to start sending J.D. Vance out. It's like this going to be the steady stream of J.D. Vance.
Yeah.
Because Donald Trump not only is a coward, like he's that guy that likes to yell things from behind the bushes and then go and hide behind the tough guy. That's what he does. We've seen it. Like he's Taco Trump. Trump always chickens out. It's like a thing. It's a thing for real because, case in point, he's here in Canada. Mark Carney's the best. Mark Carney's awesome. Gets on a plane. He's like, Canada better give me $71 billion for the fucking Golden Dome. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You didn't say anything about that like 24 hours ago, you moron. So that's all this is. This is Donald Trump, rhetoric, bullshit, not being able to show up because he's scared, because he is unwell, and his handlers refuse to allow him in more unscripted scenarios and situations.
He can't travel for 4 hours, 5 hours now to go to California. He can't handle it. You could tell he's just not physically capable of doing it. No. Never mind in a public setting like that where he's actually got to inspect troops or maybe even come in contact with the population. I mean, anything could happen. The terrible thing that they have, even though they think that J.D. Vance is going to be some great, future president of the United States, he inspires so little confidence in anyone who ever watches him do anything. I mean, I can't even imagine him inspecting the troops right now. They would laugh at him because he's just, he's like he did in Greenland when he went there. He's just not capable of doing this kind of stuff.
He's a joke.
He might be a smart guy, but he's not.
Dude, yeah. Neither is Trump. Like, Trump is not capable. Like, Trump does not have the respect of the troops. I don't know if you've seen some of the videos that have come out since his military parade of active duty officials who are like, that guy's like, fuck, we did not march for a reason. Like, we hate the guy. Everybody hates the guy.
Yeah.
He's like, he's co-opted us, our bravery, our courage, all those things. JD Vance is no different. JD Vance is pardon the French, a couch fucking hillbilly who magically made it out of the Appalachians, went to Harvard and decided to take the money and become a different person, like a WWE heel.
Hmm.
He is not qualified for any of this stuff. He has no business inspecting the National Guard or Marines or anybody else that Trump has co-opted for his war against blue states and sanctuary cities. Like zero.
Yeah.
But he's a better option than, flagpole sitta Harvey Danger. Like he legitimately is.
Except there's one thing standing in the way of, complete and total control of the US government by Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, not to go back to those names. But, Vance is their guy. Vance was put in there for $135 million or whatever it was they donated to the original Trump America PAC, which funded the Trump campaign. In exchange, they got Vance as the vice president. Well, guess what? This was probably the plan all along, to get the president elected, get him too sick or get him out of office as quickly as they can. And then you've got Vance positioned there to take over. Young guy who could be in power for many, many
Oh, yeah.
years if you start rigging elections the way they intend to rig elections. And suddenly you've got the Broligarchy in full control of the United States of America. I mean, that's a real thing that people must be thinking about at this time.
Yeah, it should be. If not, yeah, I know you do. You sit up at night, you think about it. You lay awake at night, and you're like, Peter Thiel.
I'm such
Peter
a nerd.
Thiel, how much more damage can Peter Thiel do?
Really?
Elon Musk, how much more damage listen, these guys are going to get caught. I'm telling you.
I mean,
Like,
they're caught, but there's enough data that I've been putting out. There's enough data that everyone's been putting out.
I know.
These guys are guilty as fuck, as they would say, and I apologize for the swearing. You're the only one allowed to swear here. But I got to say, this is, egregious and horrible that we have got such a missing picture of what is really going on in America. The mainstream media abdicates its responsibility all the time. Even the Democrats aren't really willing to say it. I mean, these guys are taking over America with the technocracy. They're going to be using data to control every aspect of our lives. It should be a 5-alarm fire. It should not be one of these things.
They already are, dude.
Yeah.
Listen, there's a reason. We'll get to it. I don't know what number the story is. Alistair Kitchens. We'll get to that in a bit. Yeah. There's a reason why people are getting apprehended. There's a reason why ICE knows where people are. They're already using the technology. They're already surveilling the state. This isn't something like this is something that's happening right now. And I think a lot of people should get used to it. I think if you're doing something wrong, something stupid, and I go back to this, it's like a common sense thing all the time. If you're doing something wrong, you should be worried you're going to get caught for doing something wrong. But if you're not doing something wrong, you shouldn't have to fucking worry about it, right? You have a cell phone. Zev, you have one? I've got two. You got two cell phones?
I got one. I need a second one.
You got to get a burner. You need a business one. You need a personal one. Anyway, I have two ways I get tracked every day. And everybody from the government of Canada to the government of the United States to Israel, I'm sure, to Canadian Border Patrol, to Customs and Border Patrol, to Uber, to Skip the Dishes, to Apple, to Google. They know where I am.
A lot of people know a lot of things about you.
A lot of people know where I am.
Very popular. You're very popular too.
But when so we're being policed all the time. When people start policing your thoughts, if those thoughts are not violent, then we have a problem. Like that's when when your thoughts are antithetical to the thoughts or the ideas of the leaders or the rulers of a certain state. And not only are they not violent, they're just thoughts like, hey, this is wrong. Here's why I think it's wrong. These are my opinions. That's when you have a problem. And that's what's happening.
It's much worse than that. People like to think that it's because if they don't do anything political or they don't say anything political or they just avoid politics in general, they'll be fine. Yeah. That is, in fact, not true. This whole move towards, the data controlling every aspect of our lives means absolute minutiae control over every bit of your life. Like, what you did at work that day, your productivity at work that day. Were you productive enough or weren't you productive enough? How are you raising your kids? Are you giving them too much time with their video games every day? Are you smoking a vape? Because if you are, maybe we need to reduce some of your abilities to access certain programs or increase your insurance rates. What about that time that you had a little fling with somebody that your significant other doesn't know? Well, guess what? They know about that thing. and they might hold it against you. Or that time you just decided to yell at a contractor that was a government contractor. That could be an issue too. So imagine
Or
everything that
that
we have.
time you put out a tweet that
Yeah,
said, "Hey, I didn't like X, and
yeah,
X is now a powerful person over
yeah.
here, and they've paid for certain data to be able to clean up their reputation online, and they come after you, and they tell you to, put take that post down, take that review down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." Totally, I
This
totally
is,
get it, and that's what I'm saying. We're
yeah,
talking about thought crimes here. We're
yeah.
talking about people that just might not agree with you. That surveillance exists today and is being put in practice today by the United States of America and other authoritarian states.
Predictive crime is actually a real thing that these AI are now doing based on what they're learning from your data, that they're learning from your government, or they're learning from all these other data that they're combining together. They're very good at predictive crime, but it doesn't mean you're actually going to commit a crime. It means it's maybe something you thought about. Maybe it's something you don't even know you thought about, but they can arrest you for that, or they can just eliminate you for that, or they can just make you lose your
Deport
job
you.
for that, or deport you, or restrict you to your home, and that you can't leave your home, you can't travel, you can't book a plane ticket or a train ticket. That's a real reality in places like China, where they have a social credit system now.
So Dimitri just put up a comment, and
Yeah.
he's like, "It's the Minority Report." If you have not seen the Minority Report, I would highly encourage you to do so.
Times a million, times a
Yeah,
million, times imagine everything your kids ever did at school is tested against a data algorithm. Everything that you've ever done at work, everything you've ever thought about in your life is all centralized into this one computer. And when
hmm
they need to, I mean, we all use AI. It does some amazing research, but it's not doing research on you and me. But now it can, because this data lord infrastructure, this sort of data monarchy that they're building, is going to control absolutely every aspect of our lives. It's existential to each of us. It doesn't matter which political party
You
you're
don't
going to
think it
be
is
affiliated to.
already? Don't you think it is
I
already
think
to some
it's
extent?
becoming that, and I think if certainly if Elon Musk and Peter Thiel's JD Vance takes over the American government as the president of the American government, it is gone. I mean, what Doge did in terms of siphoning all that data up, very significant, problematic. What we're learning now in my investigation, other people's investigations into the electronic voting machines and the potential hacking of the democracy that way, we that is setting us up for a digital feudalism, and absolutely like a dark ages dystopian view of the universe, where the machine, the AI intelligence machine, controls every aspect of our existence. And they'll have death boards. They'll be determining who gets to live and who doesn't get to live based on what the AI thinks is viable for society. Oh, you want this treatment? Well, maybe we don't need you so much. Maybe we'll just let you die. You don't get that treatment. This is the kind of dystopian world that we are stepping into under these crazy nerds, as you put them, who have decided to, basically take over the world.
Well, and let's be serious for a second. Don't think for a minute that resentment of specific groups of people that have damaged certain nerds
Mhm.
aren't at the front of that fucking
Oh yeah,
line.
revenge is huge on there. Absolutely, get rid of all the
Revenge
people.
of the nerds, dude.
Revenge, the AI version. And that's why when the Democratic senators and Congress people put out that letter the other day to Palantir, they called it a surveillance nightmare. It is absolutely a surveillance nightmare that we are stepping into. It has been allowed to go on. I don't even know if it's reversible at this point. But the fact that it's still continuing and continuing to grow in force and in power should send chills down everyone's spine. We could
Yeah.
do the Alistair kitchen story now, because it was going to be a little lower, but we should do it because it ties
Yeah,
into
let's
everything
bring
we're
it in
talking about.
because this is a gentleman who was a Substack writer, Kitchen's Corner or Kitchen's Counter, I think it was
Yeah,
called
kitchen
Kitchen
counter.
Counter. Little Substack, kind of a cute little thing he had where he put his observations, wrote a piece about pro-Palestine protests at Columbia University.
Yeah,
And came to the United States of America, vacation here for a couple of days, was getting ready to head back, and got detained as soon as he landed. Sorry, a few days after he landed, got pulled over by ICE agents, got detained for 12 hours, questioned for 12 hours, and originally was told that he was detained and questioned because he's not allowed to write what he wrote about
yeah.
these Israel, seemingly anti-Israel blog posts on Substack. They were actually pro-democracy, pro-free speech posts on Substack. Now, listen, You're preaching to the choir here when you talk about these Gaza protests. I fucking hate them all. I think they're
Yeah, me
ridiculous.
too.
I
Me
think
too.
the ones in Montreal, the fear that Canadian Jews feel today, American Jews feel today about
Yeah,
just existing in their own land where they've been for generations is fucking ridiculous. And I believe that. And I'm a huge pro-Israel supporter. I'm not a Netanyahu supporter. I'm a pro-Israel supporter. I'm a pro-Israeli supporter. I'm a pro-innocent supporter. All those things that go into, separating the politics and the war and the violence from the individuals who are being co-opted to be flotsam and jetsam or cannon fodder in that violence. So let's
yeah.
just separate those two things real quick. What we're talking about here is a young 33-year-old who came from Australia to visit the United States of America, who was targeted for weeks ahead of him coming to the United States. And when he got here, was allowed to freely roam around
Mhm.
until it was time for ICE officials to fill a quota. So they went and grabbed this kid and they put him in an ICE detention facility for 12 hours where they deprived him of food, a phone call. They deprived him of basic civil liberties. This is
This
an
was just
Australian
CBP.
kid,
This is not ICE. But it's
CBP.
related, obviously. Yeah.
And they looked through his phone finally after they give him the excuse, according to him. And he wrote a great piece in the New Yorker. You can go and
It's
read it at
terrific.
my Substack. Yeah. And they said, you can't write that stuff. And then hours later, they're like, or we could just arrest you for illegal drug use. Because he had a picture of some gummies that he bought in New York, where eating marijuana gummies and buying them and consuming them and being high is 100% legal. And then when he informed him of that, a couple hours later, he was let go. And that was over. That was it. They detained a
Let
man.
go, but they deported him. I
Well,
mean,
they let him go by deporting him and
yeah,
sending him back to
yeah.
Australia, and said you're never allowed back into the United
I mean,
States of
he was
America.
a student here. He was
Yeah,
a traveler. This is ridiculous. He's an independent journalist. This is not someone who was actually telling anything that wasn't true. He was reporting very truthfully about what was going on. It wasn't like he was selling propaganda. There's no connection between him and any Palestinian groupings
yeah.
or
He
funding.
wrote an article. The reason why they said that they didn't like the article, he said they were deporting dissent,
Yeah,
which is true. They're deporting dissent.
yeah,
That was the issue they had for the article. So that's the
exactly.
actual title of my Substack
Yeah,
article, "The Deportation of Dissent,"
which is
because they deported an Australian for dissenting with what Trump will call American values, which are really just authoritarian values, and having an issue with authoritarian values in the
And you know
United
that's
States.
what's going to happen to every single American. As we talk about the surveillance culture and the surveillance state, they were tracking every aspect of your life, everything you ever thought, said, or done. And if you dissent, they will find a place to send you, whether it'll be the camps inside America or the prison gulags that they've subcontracted in El Salvador or Sudan or Libya, wherever it is they're choosing these days to send people. I mean, we are talking about a North Korea style authoritarian government that is going to be absolutely criminalizing any opposition to to them at all. And that is where we're heading because of the revenge of the nerds and Donald Trump and this poor guy who who actually strategized because he realized that there was maybe a chance that his phone was going to get searched, so he cleaned it up a little bit. But that's not good enough because what they've done is they've got a surveillance system that for weeks now was tracking him, developing every little bit of data and research reporting around him. So they didn't have to, the burner phone was whatever, or the replacement, the cleaned up phone didn't matter that much. They already had all the data. They already had researched him. They'd come to their conclusions about him being a danger to America somehow for telling the truth, for reporting, for being a student. I'm not sure what
For dissenting.
but dissenting is ridiculous. I mean, it's
Well, you and I both
democracy.
know it's
Yeah,
ridiculous, but
yeah,
those are the signs of an authoritarian
yeah.
regime.
And
Do you dissent?
we're
And
heading
no,
into it.
we're not heading into it. Like
Yeah,
Obama's warning yesterday, which we
yeah,
covered in the
yeah.
TheFiveStack, was pretty prescient, according to that. And here's the other thing: mainstream media is not reporting on this gentleman's story. I have been embarrassed to have been a mainstream media outlet presenter for years, never more so than now. The fact that Alistair Kitchen's story is not being told, the fact that mainstream media is so fucking deathly afraid of this piece of garbage that they're deathly afraid of a paper tiger, how he might affect their bottom line or their revenue for Q2, or how he might, it might lead to a series of mean emails that come from hillbillies and dumb fucking nerds like and AI bots and chat bots. We're living in a time where that the freedom of the press, um, is only as free as their courage is strong,
Mhm.
and their courage has been baited out of them over the past, specifically in the United States of America, over the past year to 7 to 8 to 9 years,
Mhm.
where they are so deathly afraid of a fraud, a
Mhm.
con man,
Mhm.
that they're unwilling to tell this young man's story. And that just continues to damage journalism, journalists, fact finding, truth telling in a post truth society,
Mhm.
that nobody takes them seriously anymore. Nobody. I go back to this all the time. If it wasn't for news outlets like Public Notice or podcasts like this or yournarrative.org or deanblundell.substack.com or Midas Touch or the Parnas Perspective or Lev Parnas or anybody who's just willing to go, okay, I'll take a bullet. I'll
Mhm.
take 4. I'll take 5. I'll take the emails, while mainstream media continues to just disappear, is fucking crazy to me that we live in the time that we live in. So please, 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 please support independent media where you find them. Support people where you can fact, and I encourage you to fact check everything that's on every single one of these
Oh,
podcasts.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Fact check everything that's in both of our Substacks, in the Midas Touch Substack, in everybody's Substack that you're like, I think I trust those people, because you're going to find that this is money better spent than on a USA Today subscription or a CNN subscription or any other subscription. And I've never been more aware of that than I am today. Listen, I am not a journalist. I'm a muckraker. I'm a truth teller. I'm dogged, as are you. You're a news guy. You're a producer. You like to ferry people through a journey. This is going to require us giving America back to America, the free world standing up with America, Canada standing with Americans, Americans standing with Americans. It's going to require people to turn their backs on what they thought was true, and it's going to require a little extra work on your part to go and fact check people like us, and not just take our word for it, but refuse to take anybody's word for it until you are satisfied, until you have receipts and you have proof that what you've been told is true. And that's why we do this. So please go and subscribe to us. Anybody else that does this, we'd appreciate your support, because that's why we're here. We're here because we are you.
It's so well said. I mean, you and I have spoken about this before about the need for some sort of network or some sort of cooperative. It doesn't have to be like a top-down kind of network, but where there is at least a 24/7 access to Americans, that they can receive the truth, that they can find the truth or something more akin to the truth than what they're getting on mainstream media. And it needs to be a publicly funded enterprise, I believe. Like, it shouldn't be advertiser controlled. It shouldn't be consumer or corporation controlled. We actually do need an alternative to the vile and bile you're getting out of the mainstream media. I mean, it is nonsense. It is propaganda now. We've gotten to the point where you don't get even anything resembling the truth, just like propaganda of a propaganda of propaganda. Yes, some people like Lawrence O'Donnell are still doing some good work out there some of the time, but there is no one really being as tough on this administration as they should be about all their authoritarian tendencies, about their day-to-day removal of our rights. And this surveillance story, which is a huge story, which everyone ignores. I mean, it's sort of like, yeah, I know it's technical. I know you have to sort of like, get through a lot of stuff to understand it. But why is everyone ignoring this massive story that our entire system is being taken over by a surveillance state?
Because they're so busy trying to figure out what's true and what's not true, right? And
Yeah,
you can
but
only figure that out if you follow people like Zev. Listen, your story on the surveillance state and this lawsuit that's coming towards Palantir.
mm,
Everybody has to go and read that. Go to
mm,
narrative.org, Substack, go and subscribe, free or paid, doesn't matter. Go and read it.
mm.
Go and read it. Go and dig into it. Don't feel dumb.
Yeah.
Feel empowered by it.
Yeah.
Feel like you're in the know, you're part of the conversation. Don't shy away from it because it's too much today. The more you know, the more relaxed you are, the more settled you are. Listen, we're in a fight between decency and indecency. We're in a fight between authoritarianism and democracy. This isn't about conservatives or liberals anymore. It stopped being about both of those groups a long time ago. It's not about ideology anymore. This is about whether or not America stays America or we lose America. This is about whether or not America becomes a full on authoritarian state or America reverts back to that shining city on the hill. And I happen to believe that there are enough beautiful people in that beautiful country that I've come to know as my beautiful neighbor over the past 52 years that more Americans are going to believe in the dream of who they are and where they're from and what's important, that they're going to want to stay informed. So please, like I said, make sure you invest in not mainstream media people that you can fact check and trust to tell you the truth. That's why we're here. That's why we do what we do every day. That's why we do what we do 5 days a week. That's why we start at 6 o'clock in the morning and end at 9 o'clock at night because we know what's at stake. And touching base with you, talking to you, listening to you, having you in this, like Sass Writer. She's like, oh my God, Dean, I hope so. Cry me a river. It's a duty our citizens be informed. Dimitri, I appreciate you guys. It's because we appreciate you. We are you.
Yeah.
We're in this with you. We just happen to have a platform, the ability, and a couple of dumb names that happen to be able to, act like a bit of a fairy or a light in the night. But you're all the same. So don't stop. And
No,
don't
I
stop believing that sharing these stories and subscribing to each other and sharing each other's work won't work because it will. That's how they've been winning, is that they've inflated that inauthentically. Let's do this authentically and let's do it together.
Dean, that is really powerful. Also, I happen to think that you're uniquely suited to this kind of work, and I've loved collaborating with you so much because I know how much work you put into everything, and I know how much detail you're obsessed over, and how much you care about the details, and how much you sweat over the research. That it's not just opinion journalism; it's backed up by the most thoughtful research and facts around. And I feel the same way about Olga, who's doing this great work, day in, day, just tracking autocracy, which is kind of, again, talk about nerdy work. I mean, that is nerdy work, but she is putting it in every single day so that um, future citizens of the world will be able to look back and have a detailed tracking of how the authoritarianism took over. These things are like, it requires a real nerd. I mean, these are nerdy pursuits that you do, that I do, that Olga does. They're about as nerdy as you can get. But right now, we need some nerds around. We need some nerds around to help understand and explain all the surveillance structures that are being put into place. We need some people who are going to look through the veil of news that we're getting from mainstream media and actually are able to decipher, as you have, that Donald Trump is not well. I mean, you're the only person I've seen that really has been shouting that from the mountaintops. And he does
And
not
then
look
Lawrence
well.
O'Donnell jumped in on it yesterday. Did you see that? Lawrence
Lord,
O'Donnell's like, the guy's got like
I,
dementia, but how are we supposed to know? Because his mental processing starts down here. So how are we
uh,
ever going to know if he's completely fucking fried?
Lawrence O'Donnell must watch us. Hey, Lawrence, you should watch us.
Hi, Lawrence.
I'm a huge fan of Lawrence O'Donnell, and I think that they've done, But to my point is that you're the one who broke that story, and I think people need to understand that stuff doesn't just arrive in the zeitgeist without people like you pushing those things and without you highlighting those things. It is, in fact, the number one story on the countdown today, which sort of makes us miss a story, but I'm going to go there anyhow, is the ailing health of the President of the United States of America. The president's alarming mental and physical decline is finally breaking through the media's silence, with MSNBC's Lawrence O'Donnell asking if the viral question, if Donald Trump gets dementia, how would we even know? From bruised hands and catheter bulges to incoherent rambling and early G7 exits, medical experts are going on the record saying Trump shows unmistakable signs of dementia while the world snatches America's nuclear commander deteriorates in real time. World watches, sorry, America's nuclear commander deteriorate in real time.
So let me kind of get to this. Dr. John Gartner yesterday. And I love the fact that a lot of doctors are like, hey, fuck Fuck professional standards and courtesy. Let me explain to you what this guy's got going on. Dr. John Gardner, psychologist, founder of Duty to Warn, went on the record the other day stating, quote, Trump is showing unmistakable signs of dementia. His speech is degenerating into literal incoherence. Dr. Brandy Lee, renowned forensic psychiatrist, called Trump's state, quote, a public health emergency, noting he is far worse than he was in his first term. The danger has multiplied. Dr. Ben Michaelis, clinical psychologist. This isn't even normal aging. Trump's speeches, Trump's speeches now show signs of logorrhea, excessive incoherent talking, a potential symptom of cognitive impairment. Listen, I love being right. Like, I really do. It's like a kink I have, where it's like, someone's like, you're right. You're 100% right. I'm like, say it again, but slower.
You're right.
Dang, it's so hot right now. This is the hottest thing I've heard on there. Yeah,
Too
it's
weird.
so hot.
Too weird.
Dr. Alan Francis, Dr. Richard Friedman, White House aides. Donald Trump is sick. He is unwell. He is mentally unwell. He is emotionally unwell. He is physically very, very sick. As to what he has, every expert that's been canvassed has said, hey, you start with dementia, maybe go into Lewy body disease, and then let's talk about all the other maladies like narcissism, bipolar disorder, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All those things we knew, but he is so much slower. He is so much weirder. He is incoherent. He is not finishing words, nonetheless fucking sentences. He deferred to Mark Carney when he was in trouble at the G7, where he tapped him on the elbow. If you remember that, he's like, "Yeah, go ahead and take it from here. I'm gassed." After a 6-minute rant that made him sound like Grandpa didn't get all the meds that morning, and if he doesn't get them soon, he's going to code. Donald Trump, and they're actively talking about it, the president of the United States, and invoking the 25th Amendment because he is that unwell.
Mm-hmm.
But the people around him that want to invoke the 25th Amendment are so fucking afraid of the man and the people around him that are propping him up. It's almost like elder abuse at this point. And no, I don't feel sorry for him being abused by organizations and people around him for licensing deals and crypto deals and all the things that they keep trotting him out there and telling him to go do their worst so they can kind of work behind the scenes and take your money and transfer the wealth. I feel no sympathy for the man. But the fact that the free world is just catching on to this and mainstream media outlets are now talking about it absolutely validates me.
It validates you, and you were and are right about it, and you're so good to raise the alarm about it. But this man is also currently deciding if America should enter a war in Iran. He's deciding right now whether he should send American troops into harm's way, so on behalf of another country. In what could be a cataclysmic sort of powder keg that could explode in the Middle East. And yet he's the guy doing it, the guy with
and listen, let me just kind of jump in real quick. That's the question that a lot of his hardened supporters are asking right now.
Yeah.
Because he goes to war with Iran, and you let an incredibly mentally and physically and emotionally compromised and unwell man go to war that may start a nuclear holocaust in the Middle East because you just didn't have the gumption to go, dude, you're unwell. Just because you didn't have the balls to say our guy is compromised emotionally, mentally, and physically, because you lined up behind him like the Hegsis and the Gabbards of the world that lined up behind him to get what they wanted, or the Koch brothers, now the one guy's dead, or any other business or entity that lined up behind him, whether it's the evangelical lobby, and you start a war that ends in millions and millions of people dying, and you didn't have the nuts to say, hey, Dean's blog post back in May proving this out, surgeon generals have passed, psychiatrists, board certified clinicians are like, hey, guy's unwell. He's going to get America into trouble. And he gets America into trouble among other people because he's that fucked in the head. I mean, the authoritarian bent, like the old man get off my lawn bullshit, that's one thing. Getting America and the free world into World War III is totally fucking different.
Yeah, I mean, we can't afford this war. It's misguided. It's ill advised. This is not the right thing for us to do. I don't care who you're listening to. I just don't think this is something we need to be dealing with in the current position America is in. Starting another war on another front in another country is just nonsense. It's just we haven't even got a coherent, hierarchy in the Pentagon. The Secretary of Defense is drunk, who's basically too dumb to even be included in the negotiation or the conversations around whether to do the strike. You've got an intelligence chief that's been on the outs because she's so busy pushing Russian propaganda that's now at odds with the president. And so who's advising this guy who's decrepit and old and senile and all these ailments you describe? He has our futures in his hands. He's going to decide whether the nuclear codes are passed on or not. I mean, this is exactly where we're at. And this is not business as usual. This is about as big an emergency as we could possibly have. Yesterday, you mentioned the doomsday clock. Absolutely. That doomsday clock is getting closer and closer to midnight with every second because I guarantee you this will not be an easy war to get out of. It never is an easy war. Wars are not easy to get out of. Wars against Iran.
How long did the
to
Iraq war last? 20 years?
Yeah,
22 years?
Basically, Afghanistan, Iraq, 20 years.
They leave and that place just implodes in 24 hours.
And this is, you don't have to
same thing.
Look at the map. It's right there. It's in the same region. We're going to do the same thing again in another country. Only this country has more sophisticated weapons, has a history of fighting wars, is geographically very, very well
It's got real allies, too.
Yeah, real allies. And so we're going to do this. We're going to, because Israel says so, we're going to go and say, hey, we'll just fly over there and bomb some nuclear facilities.
But dude, that's the benefit of having a guy like Donald Trump in office. If you're Netanyahu or any other world leader, it's like he's so fucking messed up.
Yeah.
He's so dementia laden. He's so cooked from amphetamines. He is so out of it physically and mentally.
He's 80.
We can get him to buy into anything we want us to do.
Yeah. Anything as long as it feeds his ego. And you can just see what they're doing right now. You probably are just, you're going to be saving the world. You're going to be...
give you a hotel. He's like, hotels. Yeah. Take a hotel.
Don't worry about this because we got it covered. It's not covered. They have no idea how they're going to extricate themselves. If Israel wants to be doing this, fine. But America entering in a war in the Middle East is never a simple overnight decision that he wakes up and decides overnight. We know it's going to be a powder keg because it always is. History shows us time and time again. Every time we enter a war in the Middle East, it's a disaster because it's a trap most of the time.
Well, every time America enters a war without Canada, they lose. I just wanted to kind of draw your attention to that. Like Canada said no to this war because we're not morons. We're not like, we're not getting involved. Same thing with Afghanistan. It's not for us. Same thing with Iraq. It's not for us.
This is not one in the United States to step into.
Yeah.
It's a trap. It's a trap. Yeah. Vietnam, a trap. Korea, a trap. Afghanistan, a trap. Iraq, a trap. And now you've got, Iran. And they're all in bordering the same countries. Imagine that. They're all bordering Russia and China because guess who's putting the trap out there? They're putting the trap out for America. That is the TheFiveStack tonight on Substack. DeanBlundell.substack.com is where you find out all the information about Donald Trump's decline in great detail. It really is interesting to read, and there is a lot of fact-based stuff there for everyone to consume. Plus, there's stories about Alistair Kitchen, which we spoke about earlier on today, and so much more on the DeanBlundell.substack.com. Check out narrative.org, where you'll be able to find my reporting. I know it's geeky, and I know it's hard to get through, but you'll find out all about Eaton's Corporation's control of the uninterrupted power supplies to our electronic video voting machines, which is really a hacking of democracy. That is our show for today. Thank you very much for being here, and we'll be back on Monday on the TheFiveStack.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Cheers.